is incomplete.
In this Last Epoch Spellblade build guide, I'm going to show you my build that's working very well for me right now. This is a speed run build, so it's mainly based around movement speed, but it's also got some pretty good damage. But although it could have much more damage, and I'll show you how to get more damage as well in this video, because as you know, Spellblade is a very big damage focused class. So I'm going to go through everything and show you what's working for me right now. This is an updated version from my last video that came out a couple of days ago. So let's get started. First, I actually want to get into the gear, and then we will get into the other stuff. So the gear that I'm running is right here, and I have a few other pieces that I'm going to show you as well that I use depending on the situation. Now, you also need to understand that you're going to have different build types for different situations, right? So for monoliths, I want to, I'm hitting mobs and I want to just run fast through there. For single target bosses, for example, like if I'm just fighting a boss, then I'm going to have a different setup. And that's why I have these other weapons down here. So let's get started. The headpiece is just dex, mana, physical resistance, increased armor, and increased health. Now, physical resistance is very important on this build. I'll tell you why in a second. On this, we have increased damage over time. Don't need that. That's just on there. I couldn't re-roll it. And then we have 102 increased cold damage, neurotic resistance, poison resistance, and chance to shred on armor hit. You want to have shred. It's very good. This here is the beast that is really giving me a lot of damage right now. So this has 59 melee damage, 89% melee critical strike multiplier. Then it has 7% crit chance, 58% increased crit chance. Shock on hit doesn't really matter. And then we can inflict spiders, which also gives a critical chance depending on the stacks that is on the enemy. And then we get 4% leech as health, which can help sometimes. And then we have 26% melee critical strike multiplier as well. So this thing is a damaged beast that's centered around critical damage and chances, okay? And we'll talk about stats in a second. And then we have the critical stats, and then we have just dex, intelligence, ward per second, and increased dodge rating. I'm waiting to get my best in slot for this, which is +4 shatter strike. Now, this is what I am running for a few reasons. It gives me 20% increased melee speed. It gives me 6% increased movement. But more importantly, it gives me ward, which helps me run through and not get killed. And it gives me haste as well. And then elemental attacks deal 1% increased damage per 200 ward. It doesn't really make a difference with this particular build. And then we have increased critical strike, dex, stun avoidance, endurance. This is just whatever. I need to upgrade this, but some damage and mana regeneration. Attunement, freeze rate, and dodge rating. However, I often change this out to this, which gives me more ward and mana if I need it. So I do run this quite often, and it gives me a little bit of elemental damage as well, and some resistance as well. So that's pretty good. Or I just run this. I basically run this for the cold rate multiplier and the dodge rating. This here is 21% melee attack speed, 40% increased critical chance, 87% armor, 78% health. These here I run for the movement speed, so you get 10%, then you get 30%, and 78% health on the roll there. And then 31% more physical alignment damage to moving enemies. I don't think that does anything anyway. And then we've got 8 strength, 11 dex, 10 intelligence. Now this here is good, but you need to watch out. So this gives me some ward and damage over time. Don't really care about that. However, you're inflicted with bleed, and when you hit an enemy with Shatter Strike. So you're going to have bleed on you all the time. And what's important about this is bleed is physical damage. So you need to have a high physical resistance. I did have it at 74, I think, but it's dropped down to 52. So that it is a little bit of a pain. So you want to try and have your physical at 75 cap if you are running this particular gear piece here. Okay, it gives you +1 to Shatter Strike. It gives you 8 dex, increased mana regen, and then critical strike multiplier as well. So that's the gear there. Now, what you can do with this build, you can do a few different things, right? If you just want to go through super fast, change this over, but you're going to be a lot weaker, okay? Because it has that movement speed. If you want higher crit, I can take this out, and then I can put this in, which gives me 8 plus 8% melee crit strike chance. Now, if we look at my stats here, you'll see that my melee strike chance is actually 56%. When I take this off, it goes down to 34%. So that plus 8% dramatically increases that chance, because the plus 8% and let's just say 67%, it's actually different. This doesn't give 67%, but this here, it gives you much more, even though it just says plus 8%. So if you want high crit, you can add that as well. So that's the stats for that. This one here, I can add this as well if I want. This gives me increased cold damage, increased melee attack speed, and that's all I have that on there for. So I'll give you the situations that I'm in. If I'm just running a monolith, I'm running this setup here. If the enemies are easy to kill and I want to get through quicker, I'm running this setup here. Okay, that's here we go. If I want higher crit chance and I'm fighting a boss, that's what I'm going to run at this point in time. If I don't want to go through monoliths as quickly, but I still want high attack speed and all that sort of stuff and damage, I'm going to rock this. So that's the setup there. Okay, very simple. These are the idols. I need to change these out. These are just resistances and stuff. You can check my last video about that. But what's more important is this one here, 66% increased melee damage. We have some movement speed, increased damage, and ward decay. This one's very good. And then we just have some melee damage here. And this is just defenses, really, and resistances. That's all there is to that. So let's get into the rest of it. Now, a lot of people, the thing about the Shatter Strike build, right, is I'm not solely focusing on damage right now, because I'm just trying to pump out monoliths. If I could kill an enemy quick, I don't need more damage. So I try to have a good balance of speed, damage, etc. And if I can handle it and I can get through there without dying, and I have a good balance of not dying, speed, and I can kill the enemies quick enough, I'm not going to get more damage. I don't need more damage at that point of time. I'd rather focus on speed. So now let's get into the abilities that you're going to be using in here. You're going to be using Flame Ward. Actually, we'll start here. Flame Ward for defenses. Shadow Strike as your main damage thing. This Frost Claw, you don't actually have to use it. It auto does itself. Enchant Weapon, and then Mana Strike. I don't actually use Mana Strike much anymore. I don't have a mana problem, so I might change that out. Okay, Shadow Strike. We have 3 points into this one for some damage. We have more into this one for damage and area. We have 5 points into speed. And we have 4 points into area and cold penetration here. We have 4 points into mana efficiency and for some ward. We have 2 points into this for some more damage. Now, people might be saying, why don't you have any points into this? This gives you a critical multiplier per sword. Well, I'm not running a sword. I'm running a mace and a sword. So I don't have that on right now. I will soon when I do my crit build, my main crit build. And so that's that there. This is the Mana Strike. I'm not really going to go over this because you can just have a look. It's basically just building up mana. That's really it with that. Flame Ward, you're basically doing this to build out ward and defenses. So here we go. So ward retention, ward per second, all that stuff. The reason why is you get into a big group of enemies, you can just go in there, pop your Flame Ward, and just start destroying things. So you can pause the screen, have a look if you like. This is kind of the same, right? We just got some damage and speed here. This is activated longer. This here gives us less mana cost and some more elemental damage. This here lets it come on automatically. This is some more damage. And what I can't remember what this one is. This is you have increased chance to chill enemies. Okay, so we had to do that to get to this one. You deal additional cold damage with melee attacks. So it's basically just damage, and that's really it here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Frost Claw. So this will automatically trigger. We have freeze rate multiplier and critical chance. We needed that to get to here, so it's less a bit more efficient with mana, and we do more damage to frozen. We have this one here, and essentially I don't really use so this one here cast, it's basically less mana again. This one here, there's just doesn't really matter. I like it for the ward gain on cast. And then this one here is ward per freeze rate multiplier. So once again, when you cast Frost's Claw, you gain ward based on the freeze multiplier. So the more freeze multiplier you have, the more ward you're going to have. That's quite important for this build. Increase cast speed. So you don't really need this on. I just have points into it. It does come out faster, but it's not necessary. So you could potentially change it around. So now let's look into the passives. And if you don't know, when you use Shatter Strike with this build, Frost Claw actually comes automatically, but I just forgot something. Hang on a second. This is why we have Frost Claw. We have Frost Claw for this reason. Gain a stack of Frozen Sleeper each second up to a maximum. When you cast Frost Claw, it consumes all stacks and gains cold penetration per stack. Now, the thing is, with this build, we have two ways of getting cold penetration. We have this way, where six stacks explode, and you get 60% cold penetration. And we also have the cold penetration from this as well when we have our bleed. Now, both of these are pretty close to hitting the cap of cold penetration when they're activated each. So when they're activated together, you're going to be way over the cold penetration cap, which is 75, because what cold penetration does is it penetrates the enemy's resistance, and as far as I know, that's 75 cap. However, these can go at different times as well, so I just have them both on, and that's why I have Frost Claw, is for that penetration. Now let's get into the passives. Remember, guys, this isn't just about damage. This is about survivability. This is about getting through the monoliths as quick as I possibly can without dying all the time and having a nice balance of damage. I can kill the enemies quickly. Passives. I have 5 points into this. I have 8 points into this. 4 points into this. 5 points into this. I'm just going to go through this quickly, guys. You can just pause the screen and have a look. 6 points into this, 8 points into this, 5 into this, and then 2 into this. I would like to put 1 more into this so it activates more. So this is the Frost Claw we're talking about. When you use a melee attack and hit at least one enemy, you have a chance to cast Frost Claw. This is pretty good for this build. This is for attack speed. This is for a little bit of defenses. So what you want to do is you want to put a little bit into arcane shielding, and then you want to put 1 into here, or a couple into here, because what happens is the shield effect is 60% less, but it stacks up to 4 times. So it actually works out much better. We have 1 point into this, so we can have 2 weapons. 3 points into this for chance to gain mana and health. I want to get this up to 5 to give me more mana, but I don't have a mana problem right now. But I probably will later on. I have some points into this. Now, you might be asking, why wouldn't I put the points into this where I get more critical and all that sort of stuff? Because right now, this build is not, even though it's becoming more focused on critical stuff now, it wasn't before. So that's why I have it into here. 2 points into this, 10 points into this. This one's important. And then we have the rest into this just for ward mana and mana regen. And that's it, guys. That's the build. Suits me well. Got a really good balance, and I enjoy it. I'll see you guys in the next video.